this attack.
Okay, so ahavat yisrael. Rabbi Avram Kook was known for his love for all Jews. Despite pressure from his colleagues to distance himself from the secular Zionist movement, just what we were speaking about, he embraced them and declared that they played a very important role in the building of the land of Israel, and one should treat them with love and respect. In one instance, Rabbi Kook was asked to protest soccer games that were taking place on Shabbat. He refused to criticize them and instead focused on the benefit that these games provide to society. He also loved and respected his detractors. One time, a group of extremists poured wastewater on him in public. When someone tried to encourage him to press charges, Rabbi Kook responded that he has too much love for these Jews to press charges against them. Okay? Rabbi Kook was beyond most people when it comes to this sort of thing, but he was trying to he obviously wants to make a statement that ahavat yisrael, the love of Israel, the love of Jews, must supersede all. Okay. In the morning, there's a custom, a number of Siddur prayer books to recite the following: Hareini mekabel alai mitzvah aseh shel v'ahavta l're'echa kamocha. That behold, I accept upon myself the mitzvah, the commandment, the positive commandment of you shall love your neighbor like yourself. Ahavat Yisrael, love of the Jews, is something we all value, and we should love and show respect to every Jew, even when we disagree with their opinions or values. Ahavat Yisrael also compels us to teach others about the ideas we treasure, because if we value something, we want those who we love to benefit from it as well. The question now becomes, how do you balance love and respecting those who have different ways of life with our desire to introduce them to that which we find meaningful? Now, working for the Midrash Torah Center, this really does become an issue. Anybody in Kiruv, this becomes an issue. Namely, how do you deal with people who are not religious and who believe the Torah is not true? Forget the non-Jews who walk in. It's a different thing altogether.
Well, there goes half of the crowd.
No, I'm just saying, but that's not part of the equation. The equation is only for Jews and because that's the mitzvah. They have to re'echa kamocha. I have to love my neighbor. You have to love your friend or your neighbor like yourself. So the way that I would want to be treated is the way that I have to treat everybody else. Okay? So now, based upon that, you have cases 1, 2, and 3. Case 1. You are spending Shabbat with friends or relatives who don't observe Shabbat the same way you do. You feel bad that they don't appreciate Shabbat as you do. How can you share your appreciation of Shabbat without offending them? Any suggestions?
It's a lose-lose situation. I wouldn't spend Shabbat with somebody that did something that I felt was incorrect. I mean, I wouldn't. Shabbat's too special.
Okay. So you wouldn't share it at all, and you?
I think inviting them to your own home and then trying to cope with anything they do that's not exactly your interpretation of Shabbat. You know, if they turn on lights or turn off lights, you know, you can correct them gently, but let them see what your version of Shabbat is like.
Okay, I hear.
With the knowledge that some things are going to happen you're probably not going to be happy about.
Okay. A good friend strongly disagrees with you about a certain issue, and every time this issue comes up, it usually is followed by a heated debate. You are both passionate about this issue, and it is a major part of your lives. How can you civilly discuss the issue without it affecting your friendship? By the way, let's put this into a proper political perspective, since that's what we love to deal with here. You have a staunch Democrat and you have a staunch Republican, and you two are friendly. I don't know how that happens, but
not anymore.
Or, by the way, this is the Congress. How could they actually work together?
They don't. That's the point. Gridlock.
That's the point. So the question is, how could one civilly discuss the issue without it affecting the friendship? And notice again, you guys are friends. This is the one issue that's the red herring? No, that's what you call it, red herring?
No.
What do you call that?
I would call it the wedge.
The wedge, okay. Or the big elephant in the room. And I'm not talking about Republicans, right?
Yeah.
Okay. But how do you do that? You have any advice before we enter into the class?
No, in my youth I would have tried desperately to just discuss it, and by the time I've got to this point, I wouldn't have a friend that was that diametrically opposed to something that was that. I mean, I wouldn't be unfriendly to somebody, but I wouldn't waste my time trying to get them to move to the different position, because it's not going to happen.
Okay.
And it depends on where the issue is on the spectrum. I have a number of acquaintances with whom I communicate, even though we don't share too many views about political or social issues. But there's enough of a friendship there that they're casual friends, or sometimes even better than casual. There are things we simply don't discuss.
Okay, so you avoid discussion.
Yeah.
So, but in both cases, I mean, in this case, both of you agree that you're going to agree not to discuss it. That's how you simply do it. Disagree. Right. So, last case, you find yourself in a place where you clearly stand out from everyone else, and it seems as if the people are looking down on you and talking down to you. What is the appropriate way to react?
Say hello to my little friend.
Okay.
No, if people seem to be looking down or talking down to me, I generally ignore them if it's not affecting my work or my life.
Ditto.
Okay. Pretty much consistent. Okay. In all three cases, you're all being consistent. Let's see what Jewish law would have, or Jewish thought would have to say. Our obligation to look after spiritual well-being of others is based upon two concepts. One is arevut and tochacha. Arevut, derived from the word eruv, guarantor, informs us that every Jew is responsible for the actions of another Jew. The verse states in Leviticus, they will stumble upon each other because of the sin of the other. That's Rashi's, by the way. This is from the Gemara Sanhedrin. This teaches that everyone is responsible for each other. So if you're when your relative breaks Shabbat, that is affecting you. Mm-hmm. It's comparable to you're in a boat and somebody is drilling a hole in the boat, and you say, "What are you doing?" The person says, "I'm drilling a hole in my side of the boat." You don't realize you're going to drown this? Don't worry, it's only under my chair. Yeah. Well, when a person is going to break the law on any one of these levels, they are directly and indirectly and directly or directly affecting us. So that's why. Let me just finish. That's why we have to be. That's why we're the guarantors for everybody. Everyone is a guarantor for the other. It's all part of that whole system. So if we see somebody doing something wrong, it seems that we should try to cajole them, convince them, whatever the case is going to be, besides hitting them over the head with a hammer, to do the right thing. Yes, you were going to say.
If these are relatives, they already know how you hold, and you know how they hold.
Correct.
And you probably had conversations. So if they're still doing these things,
right?
Assuming you've had conversations from time to time,
correct.
People get very defensive about religious issues, especially if they know they're doing something wrong or they're not doing what they should be doing.
Correct.
So I would think that continually talking that Shainik isn't going to improve the thing. You just go about living your life and be a living example, because you're not going to talk them into anything.
Good. You've changed in from class to class. That's interesting. Okay.
But
those who are watching the video will see that your views have changed in just a few weeks.
Not necessarily.
Okay, you be correct. You are correct with what you're saying. Okay, mark that down. I agreed with you. Okay.
Thank you.
So now let's continue. Tochacha, literally translated as rebuke, and it focuses on our mandate to correct misdeeds or behaviors of a fellow Jew. Rabbeinu Yonah in Shari Teshuvah, because Gates repentance, which we learn every Tuesday at 7 o'clock at night, writes that the mitzvah of Tochacha, that's my cheap ad out there, writes the mitzvah of Tochacha is one aspect of the broader concept of arevut. And now, we're going to get into a whole question of what rebuke is. The Talmud recognizes the difficulty of effectively rebuking someone by stating that one may not embarrass the violator, and that already in Talmudic times, people didn't know how to properly rebuke. The Talmud also states that sometimes it is better to remain silent. So it says, Rav Eli said in the name of Reb Elazar ben, the son of Rav Shimon, just as there's a mitzvah to say something that will be received, there's also a mitzvah to refrain from saying something that won't be received, which is what you were saying. Mm-hmm. If I had the conversation with them, and I know that they are not going to listen, then it is better to leave them in their ignorance rather than to try to say, but you must do this because you're drilling a hole in the boat. If they are sinking the boat, while it certainly will affect me, I can't convince them and they're going to keep drilling. So I can either fight, kill them, or do whatever I want to do, but nonetheless, there's going to be a hole in the boat. Okay, so if it's not going to help, it's not going to help. On the other hand, if there's a possibility that it will help, and you are saying it in a very, you said it, I believe you said it this way, in a very nice manner, and they are receptive to that, fine. And we learned another thing, that there was a rabbi in Yerushalayim who was walking with, remember this case? He was walking with somebody to another guy in Jerusalem, remember? And he wanted to smoke cigarettes on Shabbos. And the rabbi was afraid, I forget. The rabbi was Ari 11, I think.
That's right.
Okay. Rabbi 11 was walking, he walked the Jew and was talking to him all the way to where he had to go. And that's when the guy said, I never heard Shabbat explained to me in such a manner. I promise not to smoke anymore on Shabbat. Okay, fine. So you never know if somebody is receptive, what you can do by a simple discussion. Not telling them, look, you must do this, but explaining, like you want to say, modeling the behavior. If you model the behavior and it really is something that you believe and not just something you're trying to sell, so then that is going to have an impact. But if that does not have an impact, according to the Gemara in Yevamot, you shouldn't really do it.
Okay. I should stop the daily calls to the White House.
You should stop yes, you should stop that. Unless you're just telling the president what you have to tell him what you really think. Okay. So,
that can't have happened because he's still sitting here.
Okay. Now, the question that he asked, and I'll leave it, I'm not going to stay too long on this, but can we really know if our words will be received warmly? And again, this goes back to the beginning. If you have to love your family like your neighbor, like yourself. Would I be receptive to those words? If I was in that person's shoes, am I going to want to listen to that sort of discussion? And if I'm not willing to hear it, or better still, I'm in my shoes, and somebody from my side of the fence is telling me that I should do something different. I should wear a black hat. I should eat challah yisrael. I should have pas yisrael. I should only have these things. How do I take it? If I'm not going to take it well, and I'm already on this side, how much more so is the person who's not on my side, on the other side, going to appreciate me telling them, oh, it's so beautiful to be on this side, and I want to hear that. That's how you really have to weigh that. Okay, yeah, you want to say something? No? Okay. So the Talmud states that one should be very persistent in rebuking the transgressor even to the point that where the transgressor is agitated. Does that contradict the idea that one should only rebuke when it is going to be received? And again, the question would be, why or why not? It's not good enough to say, yes, it would. Yet he's really getting to a thought question here. But that would be an interesting question.
And you don't really know until you try to rebuke them whether or not it's going to be received.
Well, you may know because, again, it may be somebody that you've talked to.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't agitate someone just for the sake of agitating someone.
Right. So if you see somebody getting agitated, by the way, this goes across the board. I mean, if you go to teacher meetings, parent-teacher meetings, okay, I had just the pleasure of doing that today. So when we go to parent-teacher meetings, if everything is cool, your children are wonderful, great. Okay. When you start getting the other message, though, then it becomes a competitive issue of, why is this the first I'm hearing of this? And so on and so forth. And of course, teachers will then go on the defense. I didn't know. I should
You didn't have a good day today, did you?
Yes, your wife was part of that discussion this morning.
Yes. Well, it's also coming from the Facebook, right?
Yeah.
Right. Where that's the question. I mean, what are you coming up with? Why did you, if we have a problem, why did you contact me before? Why am I waiting for parent-teacher conferences? And of course, teachers will get defensive. Parents get defensive, teachers get defensive. And really what you have to ask is, if I was on that side of the
as you were.
As I was, when I was on that side, did I appreciate it? And the answer, of course, is not. So you have to really temper that when you're walking into those sort of meetings. You really have to have the Haftarecha Kamocha in your heart, in your mind, that I have to treat you the way I would want to be treated. Okay, so now, if one knows that their words won't be accepted, they should not rebuke. When the rabbi stated that one should be persistent to the point where the sinner is agitated, they were discussing one family member rebuking another, such as a parent or a child or sibling, because in these cases there is already established love and the sinner can tolerate anything except harsh rebuke. However, one should not rebuke other people persistently, because rebuke is going to cause hatred, and persistent rebuke to the point of agitation will cause the sinner to do something bad and take revenge, such that the attempt at rebuke will make things worse. So why, and here you have an indication from the Yehuda Chassid from Sefer Hasidim, where he's explaining what type of rebuke will work. I have to have a record of love. If I don't have a record of love, I'm not going to get anywhere. Which is, again, go back to the verse. V'ahavta l're'echa kamocha. That you have to love your neighbor like yourself. V'ahavta. You have to love. That's the point. Okay? If I have a love, if my neighbor knows that I love that person, that I respect that person, so my neighbor is going to be more likely to listen to me. As compared to if I don't know you, I just see you, and I say, you're doing wrong. Oh, who the heck, who made you Lord and Master? So that's what Rabbi Yehuda Chassid is saying. That first, the reason that I can rebuke somebody is they already know that I love them. My children know I love them. So when they see that I'm upset about something that they did, so then they know that I'm not coming because I hate you and I want to touch you or whatever, punish you. The least I want to do. What parent in their right mind wants to punish their child? Nobody wants to do it. We'd rather give the kid candy. Do good, give you a kiss and have a good day. But when you have to punish, the child understands it's not coming from a place of hatred for me. It's coming because my father loves me or my mother loves me, and they want me to do the best. And even though that they'll cry, they still know that we didn't do it out of malice. Okay? Again, assuming the parents are normal. I'm not sure how many times we have normal parents.
These days.
Right. That's what I'm saying. And then the Rambam said, if one sees a friend sin or follow an improper path, then there is a commandment to bring them back to proper ways and to inform them about their sins. As it says, you shall surely rebuke your friend. When one rebukes a friend, whether on interpersonal matters or on ritual matters, one should do so privately and speak gently, using soft language, informing the sinner that the rebuke is for their benefit to bring them to the world to come. So for all of these preachers, I remember when I was at UMass, which every once in a while we had these preachers come to campus, stand on the benches and start preaching the word of the Lord, okay? And telling us how we're all going to go to hell. Well, of course, as a Jew, since I didn't believe in their God, it didn't really matter what they were saying to me. But it's anyway. But yeah, that doesn't work. This is the point. It doesn't work. If I, on the other hand, if I pull you over and I do it gently, I do it, and again, I'm showing you respect, that, according to the Rambam, is how to properly do it. Okay. Yeah.
Which is good advice in most situations.
Correct.
It's basic leadership. If you have to rebuke someone, usually you try and drag them aside and do it in private.
Well, you just order them up. You don't have to drag them.
Colonels and generals who sometimes don't get the point.
Yeah, and there are people who need to be made an example of, but those are special situations.
Okay. Whatever the case is going to be. But so we already have a model as to how we're going to do this. So now, again, if you go back to 1, 2, or 3, so when you're spending Shabbat with friends or relatives, how can you share your appreciation of Shabbat without offending them? It could be you model the behavior. It could be they have discussions about it, but always respecting their point of view. In other words, it's not a matter of saying, I'm right, you're wrong. And if you're coming from, if they know, if you already have it, since it's family and friends, family and friends, so depending on how close you are with the family, maybe you're just a distant cousin. So if it's a distant cousin, then, and you're stuck there for whatever reason, so you have to deal with how you deal with it. But if it's somebody who, by the way, if you're spending Shabbat there, the odds are that they're not doing something that is really Mechal Shabbat. The odds are, okay? Because otherwise, why would you put yourself into that situation? You wouldn't normally, unless you're stuck, put yourself in that situation. So it could be that they're doing something that is not where you're holding. So, but it's not really breaking Shabbat. It could be at that level too. He's not saying what they're doing. He just says they don't observe Shabbat the same way. So it could be that they're really observing, bottom line they're observing. They may be using Hatera left and right, leniencies, but ultimately they're all observant. And you're coming in and you're saying, let's say it's left the TV on. Okay, because they wanted to watch Pacers is a name of a team. Well, who cares? I don't know. Who cares what they gave? They want to watch the Red Sox versus Yankees. I know those two teams. Okay. Yeah. So, and it's on Shabbos. And how could they not watch it? Now, they left it on before, or they had a timer going on. They didn't do anything. It's not muksa. They can give a whole argument about why it's all right. You say, it's not within the spirit of Shabbat. Okay, fine. And they say, yeah, but show me where I broke the law. Okay, that could be a situation where they didn't do anything wrong. In reality, they did nothing wrong. They didn't follow the Ruach of Shabbos. They didn't do a lot of things, and that's true. But in reality, halachically, you can't bring them wrong. So now, if that's the case, that's the shady area, the gray area that we're walking into. We're not walking into, so I drove down to Shul. No, that's not a gray area. That's just forbidden.
And that was my first assumption when you read the case.
Right.
Was, the radically different interpretation.
Correct. So I want to make it a closer case.
Yeah.
I don't want to leave it like that because that radically far is very simple.
I stand for Kiddush. You sit for Kiddush.
Right.
Okay.
So how can I convince you to do this or that? Okay. And that's really one of the cases here. Okay. So now, let's go back. Disagreeing with love. Until now, we have been discussing one person sharing an idea with someone else. Again, that was through love. So debating with others is also a good way to exchange ideas and opinions. However, we are met with the same challenge as with rebuking. We don't want to alienate family, friends, or others in discussing issues. What should we look for in a conversation that will indicate whether it is healthy or not? So here we go. In the Pirkei Avot, it says, and it is a famous one from Pirkei Avot, Kol machloka shehilu shem shamayim sof l'kayim. Any dispute that is for the sake of heaven will eventually have a lasting result, and any dispute that is not for the sake of heaven will not have a lasting result. An example of a dispute that is for the sake of heaven is disputes between Hillel and Shammai. They were both right. They were both only looking to understand Torah. They had no other agenda. Let's understand what God wants from us. Fine, there's an argument. Both of us can be right. Elu ve'elu devarim elokim chayim. Both of these are the words of the living God. What's an example of a dispute that is not for the sake of heaven? It's a dispute between Korach and his followers. By the way, it didn't say Korach and Moshe. This is something that was pointed out many years ago when I was in some class. It says dispute of Korach and his followers. Apparently there was even an argument amongst the ranks of the people who disagree.
Although that sentence could be read that it was Korach and his followers who had the dispute with someone unmentioned.
Correct. Oh, that's clearly what it does. It's clearly what it's supposed to mean.
Yeah.
But somebody pointed out that it doesn't say, like Machloket Hillel and Shammai, it doesn't say Machloket Korach and Moshe. I'd name the two things. It says, leaving that undecided onto the side. So it seems that there are arguments, if I follow the language of the Mishnah, it would be the argument between Moshe, Korach, and his congregation. Again, it's just parallelism. Okay? It's just going with how that works. Because he said, Machloket Hillel Shammai, Machloket Korach Ba'adato. So it seems that he's having an argument amongst his own ranks. That was what was pointed out. But clearly, they want to say, many people would go with you, to say that it's Korach and with Moshe. But that was not an argument l'shem shamayim, because all he wanted to do was to, he felt, according to the rabbis, he felt that he should be the deputy high priest, and when he wasn't given that office, then it's when he went for the whole kit and caboodle. He wanted really Moshe's job, but he went against the vice president, as it were. He went against Aaron. Okay? But really he wanted to disqualify everything and be in Moshe's place. That's what they say. But that's not l'shem shamayim. And that's why it didn't last. Hillel and Shammai lasted, so much so that right now we follow Hillel, but the Gemara says in the times of Mashiach, we'll follow Shammai. Beis Shammai's opinions. Okay? So now the question would be, how do you determine if it's for the sake of heaven? And the answer would be what? It's very simple. If I push all agendas away. If I know I don't have an agenda and I'm willing to listen to you and not argue, not continue to argue where there is no argument. That's not like the debate team. The debate team will argue to argue. Lawyers argue to argue. The Congress argues to argue. There's no common ground there. They're not even trying to make a pretense that there's a common ground, and they're trying to work for the greater good. They're trying to work to make sure that their party is reelected. That's all they're trying to do. Okay? So,
or that someone else's agenda does not prevail.
Correct.
Which is a slightly different thing. One is totally partisan and self-centered, and the other is keep this up and we're going to be engaged in civil war.
Okay. But still,
if the divide is deep enough.
But still with that, if the people would work together for the greater good, if they really had an argument with Shem Shamayim, which they don't, because many of the points that one side will have, the other side will have, we're talking about sometimes a minor point, sometimes a major point. Depends on what we are looking at. But we don't do that. The point is we just don't do that. We engage in argument for argument's sake and not to get to anywhere. Okay? And that's why people are so disgusted with the government these days.
I will insist that you sit for kids.
Right. If the person, so now the Meiri said, if the other person disagrees, not for the purpose of pride or victory, but to find out the truth, their ideas will endure. because the truth will prevail. When the dispute is not for the sake of heaven, but for the pride and victory, it will not endure. Okay, so, by the way, this is also between a husband and wife. When you're having an argument, a lot of the arguments are not l'shem shamayim. They're actually based upon something totally different. And when you get home, you're just yelling at your spouse. Something that happened at work. Spouse doesn't even know what's happening and is trying to answer. You see this amongst kids. If somebody was picked on, they always see this. The person's picked on somewhere else, they bring it home, and then they let the battles rage. But there's no reason for it. There's no common sense to it. Which is why, if the spouse is being yelled at or being sniped at, how do you say that? Sniped at. Okay, sniped at. If the person would just step back for a second instead of being on the defensive and say, "Did we have a bad day at work?" Okay. When let's talk this out because I don't know where this
started from. Chocolate cupcake and a teddy bear. And
right. Okay. Come back to
15 minutes.
Okay, come back to it. If we would, there you go. If we would actually do that instead of feeling that, how could you say that tonight? A lot of arguments would be avoided because we'd understand that really not arguing.
People are always trying to defend their pride.
Right.
They don't want to be attacked.
Well, that's the point.
Yeah,
right.
So that's why they rush to the defense.
Right. So as a general rule, in every dispute, this is from Rav Yonatan Bishop, says as a general rule, in every dispute, one is enticed to think that it is for the sake of heaven. And God forbid that one should think that is not for the sake of heaven. Always, okay. If so, how should one know if it really is for the sake of heaven? One will know if the disputing parties, with the exception of the matter of dispute, are absolute friends. However, if they are enemies and harbor hatred toward each other as a result of the dispute, it's not for the sake of heaven.
And they're no longer absolute friends.
Right. Well, correct. That's now they're enemies.
Yeah.
Right. But if that's the same shamayim. If I'm looking for the truth, so I have to know what it is. If we're not friends, if we're enemies, or I really want to show you something, again, it's normally the debate team or Congress, where they're just trying to do that. There really is no love lost that we see. Maybe there is. Maybe they do love each other. I don't know. I don't see it. Okay, and then it becomes it's not a dispute for the sake of heaven. Okay, and so we're coming down to the end. It says, so now how can one combine the statements, the comments of Rav Iri and the Eibishter to make sure that the discussions remain civil? This is a major question. Okay, you all said, don't discuss it with them. Walk away. Okay, the answer is, if you're friends, and if you're going to do l'shem shamayim, and the other person will be l'shem shamayim, and that's fine. You have the famous story that Rabbi Rhodes told when he was at the yeshiva, and he was in his yeshiva. So you had some Christian missionaries who came to the yeshiva and said, "Can we speak to you about the Bible?" And so that's when Rabbi Rhodes said, "I'm always open-minded. I'm a seeker of the truth." And so he said, "But I have a question for you." He said, "If you convince me, I, along with the whole yeshiva, will convert today. No problem. If I, on the other hand, convince you that I'm right, are you willing to commit to conversion right away?" He said, "Absolutely not." He said, "Then there is no discussion. This is not an argument for the sake of heaven. Have a good day." That's it.
Yeah.
Okay? So it has to be you're willing to gamble that. If I'm really going for the truth, then the truth is the truth. Let the truth, what's it called? Let the truth
will set you free.
Truth will set you free. There you go. So that is an example of how to do that. Okay? If one is in a debate where the other party is not interested in hearing both sides or is confrontational, what should one do? So here's what both of you would say. Let it go. Leave me alone. I'm not interested. Okay? And case number 3. In a perfect world, everyone we encounter would follow these ideas mentioned by Meiri, Eibishter. Unfortunately, there are people who disagree with our opinions or values and are not interested in civil dialogue. How do we respond to such criticism? Should our reaction have a different tone than an ordinary discussion? So here, the Gemara in Yuma says, those who are shamed and don't shame others, they listen to others mock them, and they don't respond, do everything out of love and are content even when suffering. The verse states about them, those who love God are compared to the sun as it powerfully rises. So if somebody is, what the Gemara here is saying is, if somebody is mocking you for doing the right thing, just know that you will be rewarded. Just take it, don't answer back, it's not worthwhile. And as a matter of fact, the Tomer Devora says that it is better to, let's say we sinned, so we're going to get afflictions. He said it's better to be insulted. You should look forward to people insulting you, because as we learned many times, when somebody insults you and speaks lashon hara against you, what happens is they get all of your sins, and you get all of their merits. And so why, that's a pretty good exchange.
Yes, it is.
So, you go for it.
And it's in davening every day too. My soul be as dust too.
Right, correct. And that's, we just spoke about that on my class on Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock.
And I like to say that it's, you don't even do it because there's a reward. You do it because it's right?
Well, that's true too. But sometimes when you're being, sometimes when you're being insulted, you need to know that there's something coming out of this. So, okay? So, in conclusion, the ahavat yisrael demands that we express our love and respect for our fellow Jews, and at the same time share the ideas we treasure with them. These two notions complement each other because people will only be receptive to what we say when there is mutual love and respect. Rebuke can be constructive when it is done with great sensitivity, and discussions must strive for seeking the truth and furthering the friendship of the people involved. Our ahavat Yisrael, love of Jews, must be indiscriminate and extend even to those who don't reciprocate. Just as the sun follows a natural pattern and doesn't change under any circumstances, we too should have a natural disposition toward loving and respecting all Jews, especially when responding to criticism. And so Rav Naftali Berlin said, this is what made our forefathers praiseworthy. In addition to being the most righteous, pious lovers of God possible, they were also just, meaning that they acted justly with the nations of the world, even the despicable idol worshippers. They showed love for them and looked out for their well-being, because that is how the world is sustained. Okay, so regardless of who we're talking to, they will disagree with us vehemently. They could mock us for what we do. We have to be patient. Sometimes you don't answer them. If it's not worthwhile to answer, you don't answer. Other times, if you have a relationship and there's a possibility, you can certainly try to cajole them. But at no time should one condemn the other person. Really, that's what we're getting down to. You don't condemn.
This is the problem that a lot of people have. They don't understand the distinction between condemnation and discernment. Judging. They always say, well, I can't judge another person. Right. But you can have discernment. If that person is doing something dangerous or wrong, and it might affect you,
correct,
you have the right to distance yourself
correct,
from that.
correct.
But that's not judging them. That's not condemning them. That's just saying,
that's condemning the action.
Well, I discern that this is not healthy for me.
Correct.
So, but a lot of people can't make that distinction. They think they have to accept everything that everybody does.
Well, I think here, I'll give you one thing that you can always argue back to them, using their own logic. Okay? If you're smoking in my airspace, then I'm being affected by your secondhand smoke. Mm-hmm. Now, you can argue that back and forth scientifically all you want. Bottom line is, the left believes that. Okay? The left who says you can't judge me. Okay? Just as I can't judge you, but you judge me when you say that you have secondhand smoke. So I don't want to be part of that. Because what you're doing, saying, well, I can't judge you, I can't discern what's good for me and what's not good for me. It's like saying that you must stay with the smoker who is there because what right do you have to say that he shouldn't smoke? What right do you have to make a law that says that he can't smoke in your presence, in your restaurant, in your facility, must smoke outside in the rain, not by being covered, and taxing the heck out of smokers. And I'm not a smoker. Okay? But really, tell me, how dare you tell me I have to put a seatbelt on? You're discerning that my action of being a cowboy is incorrect. Again, that's the left telling me what I should be doing, but not following their own rules. They are judging me, saying that I'm not being responsible. How dare you judge me like that? Let me live my life, but you won't do that. So that would be the answer to them, really.
Yeah, and if that answer works with them, please come back and let me know. I've never had that success.
But it's not succinctly summed up the statist hypocrisy.
Yeah, what I'm saying is, that's what's going on here. If somebody would say to me, I can't do it, I point out to them, but according to your own logic, I can.
Yeah.
According to your own logic, I can, and I should.
But the leftist position is never logical.
Okay, that's something else. So
emotion.
that's why again it has to be here. When we're shooting for in ahavat yisrael is to do everything with Shem Shemayim. So I have to know why I'm doing it. If I would go into an argument with that group, I would have to know what is my point. Do I really expect something to change? Am I doing it because I want to change them, or am I doing it because I really do care about you? I really do care about you. So that's a question that has to be asked. And if the answer is no, I really don't care about you, I only care about winning this argument, then don't waste your time, because it's not ahavat yisrael. It's pure pride, it's gaiva. And the Torah is against gaiva. Yep. So again, if it's for the non-religious Jew out there, and by non-religious I mean somebody who doesn't follow Jewish law, for those people who are listening on this thing. Okay, for the 5 people who listen. Okay, but that's what I mean. So if you have a person who identifies as a Reformed Jew, but is keeping Shabbat, they're not part of my equation. Okay? If somebody keeps Shabbat, if somebody keeps kosher, follows the Torah, I have no problem with that. Okay? And then we can have a discussion as to what level we're talking about. If somebody is not following that, and we're going to have a discussion, again, we have to have a relationship where they understand that whatever I'm saying is not coming to convince them to come to the dark side, but rather, I really believe what I'm saying, and I think that's important for them to do. Just as if somebody would be overweight, I would tell them, you really should, I love you have to start exercising. I don't want to see you die like this. That sort of thing. We're a doctor, and by the way, when the doctors say it, they have no love for us, so that's why we don't listen. But if if your spouse is speaking to you, or your family is speaking to you, that's going to have an effect on you. And that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to say we have to love each other so much so that we know that you know I love you, and I know I love you, and that's the only reason I'm saying it. I'm not saying it because I want to show I'm better than you. If you're doing it for that reason, it's totally forbidden. We'll stop there.